cube root graph look like? And let's take a look at this. So our cube root graph, just our basic graph, is going to look like the following. All right, so here's our basic cube root graph. Okay, so once again, in all of these, the nice thing is the kind of reference point is always the origin, 0, 0. So what's happening to this? Are there any vertical or horizontal shifting? Okay, vertically, how does it move? -2. So it moves down 2. Okay, horizontally, how does it shift? -3, right? The value that would give you a 0 inside here is -3. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to take this point right here, gets moved all the way to this spot. Okay, so again, if you were thinking in terms of kind of the general form of it, looks like this. Okay, where here's our kind of starting point. Now, the 1/2 in front, is there any reflection here?
No.
No reflection. Is there any stretch or shrink?
Sure.
And now it's going to shrink this graph. So what that means is rather than make it bigger, it's going to be a little bit more narrow. So it's going to look something like this in the orange. Okay. All right, so this orange graph is our representation of this whole thing. So now, as I had mentioned, you need to be able to answer the questions about it. Sam, question?
So we're going to have to, the kids are going to have to draw these or just answer?
Just answer questions. You'll see it on the homework. It's the same way. I set up the homework different than kind of how the book has it. All right, so when I ask you these questions, what is the domain of this? Okay, what is the furthest point to the left on the x-coordinate? -infinity. And what's the furthest point to the right? All right, the domain is all real numbers. And what about the range? What's the lowest y value? It keeps getting smaller and smaller, right? -infinity. And what's the highest? Positive. Okay, so what you can see here is any of the cube roots, the domain and range, always going to be all real numbers. Okay? As far as the square roots, that one is affected by the graph, so you do need to take a careful look at it. Okay, and then if I ask you questions about this, vertical shift of -2, horizontal shift, left 3, and then the shrink or stretch, shrink. Okay, you need to be able to answer all those.
So with the cube root, it's always either negative or positive infinity.
The domain and range for all the cube roots is always going to be all real numbers. Unless they specify a restriction up here. But as long as they don't do that, it's all real numbers. I don't know if the book does. I won't. Okay. Yeah, John. Yeah. The range is the y value. So what's the lowest y value? And then what's the highest y value? No, only if, because are you talking about the -3? This shift? Okay, so the shift was -3, but the domain extended for beyond that. Let's go back.